Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Only Stupid Answers. This is the show where Roxy, there she is. Hi, Roxy.
Hello.
And me, DJ, answer your questions about movies, TV shows, comic books, dragons, and more. And more. This week, we're talking about House of the Dragon, which, if you're listening to the podcast, that came out roughly a week ago. There's already a second episode. We're not going to talk about that because we haven't seen it. But just, we talk about it when we can. So we're going to be talking about the premiere of House of the Dragon, the new Game of Thrones spinoff prequel, and a bunch of other stuff. Roxy, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm nervous. Here's how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
I'm nervous because I don't know if you've seen the discourse of me versus the internet about House of the Dragon.
I've seen a little bit.
It's been brutal. I
Oh,
mean,
cool.
I don't remember last time I got backlash for something the way I got backlash for House of the Dragon.
Okay.
Which is so frustrating.
Yeah.
So I'm a little nervous, except the OSA people are dope, so I'm not that nervous.
Mm-hmm.
But that, and then mostly the only thing that's getting me through today is knowing that I'm going to eventually be able to talk to you about Bachelorette, which is giving me all of the life.
Yes. So for those that are on the Patreon, those are patrons. We do a show, What We're Into, every week, where we talk about what the stuff we can't talk about in the main show. And one of those things this week is the Patreon tier, the producer Patreon tier, the tippy top Patreon tier voted on what I should watch this week. They voted on The Bachelorette. Roxy talked me into watching not the first episode of the season, but the most recent episode of the season. So I was diving in head first and having never seen an episode of the show in my life, just so much information shotgunned into my face. Just a lot. It was a lot to process.
If you're not already a patron, now is the perfect time to become one, because I made DJ live message me.
Yes.
His thoughts on the show, and it's so good.
Yeah, it just was a lot. Patrick Warburton, goddamn. It was a lot. It was just a lot to process. And so you all are going to go on that journey with us. I also do a show with Sal called Spider-Versity, where we're talking about Spider-Man, the animated series. And we already talked about all the Spider-Man movies, so you can check that out. If you listen on Spotify, every week we ask you all a question. Last week's question was, who would you rather have as a lawyer, Daredevil or She-Hulk? Yeshu Wazalewski answered, I love Matt Murdock, but I think Jen Walters is a much more accomplished lawyer, so I'd have to say She-Hulk. Flynn Savage said, Daredevil. There's nothing like a little blind justice, crying, laughing emoji face. Roxy, if you had to choose, Jen Walters or Matt Murdock?
I actually think I would go Matt Murdock at this current moment, because Jen's got a lot going on.
That's true. She got the whole She-Hulk thing going on. We're going to be talking about that and what we're into. She now needs to practice law as the She-Hulk, which is wild.
Although we do, based on seeing 4 episodes with no spoilers, I do think she's very competent.
Yes. Yeah, I also think, what world would I feel like I'd rather be in the Jen Walters kind of fun, funny world than the deeply tragic Matt Murdock world.
Totally. Like if
what are
Matt
my
Murdock
circumstances?
Me, something bad happened.
Yeah. If Jen Walters is, if Jen Walters is seeing me, I might have been, no spoilers, I might have been fleeced by like a shape changing elf, as opposed to like Matt Murdock, like a family member was probably brutally murdered by Wilson Fisk or something.
Yeah. Totally.
So I think also, I don't know that we have much of a choice, because I believe She-Hulk's set in LA, and of course Daredevil is New York. So we would probably get the Jen Walters defense.
Well, maybe you want to pick up and move.
Maybe. I don't know if New York would be the place I'd want to pick up and move, but yeah, maybe. So let's go into some news. We got some news this week. No Ezra Miller, unless they did something while we're recording, which they might have. Roxy, I wanted your thoughts on this. We've had a lot of discourse around the Olivia Wilde, Jason Sudeikis breakup, and of course, Don't Worry, Darling is coming to theaters soon, like in a month, I think. And so Olivia Wilde's doing press for it, and she decided now was a good time to low key throw Jason Sudeikis under the bus. here are the quotes that I pulled from the Variety article, which, full disclosure, I did not read. I saw the quotes and I was going to read it for the show. And then I saw how long it was and I started, and it's like, she was wearing this blazer. I hate this stuff. I hate all the color commentary. I get why you do it. I get who it's for. It's just not for me. So I didn't read it. So if I'm missing something important, I apologize to everybody at home. She says, I hated this nastiness distracted from the work and so many different people in the studio that I was up there representing to try to sabotage. That was really vicious. She's talking about she was served a court order while she was doing a press thing for her movie. But I had a job to do. I'm not easily distracted, but sadly, it was not something that was entirely surprising to me. I mean, there's a reason I left that relationship. She also goes on to say that she feels worse for her kids because they're the ones that really suffered. And I would argue, I don't know that anybody in this circumstance really suffered. I might nitpick the terminology suffering, but whatever. I'm not involved. Roxy.
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts on this whole Olivia Wilde, Jason Sudeikis situation?
Yeah, I think definitely this is one of those, there's two sides to every story. The thing that was really wild to me that she was talking about, though, that I was like, whoa. So the fact that she was served the papers at 2022 CinemaCon this year was talked about a lot because Jason Sudeikis said he had not authorized that and was unaware that was happening.
Yes, that's his line.
Been like his line that he's saying, I didn't know that this was taking place, which I think a lot of us think is plausible. Who knows if it's accurate, but is plausible.
Yeah.
But one of the things she said was, this was a quote of her, she said, it was my workplace. In any other workplace, it would be seen as an attack. It was really upsetting. It shouldn't have been able to happen. There's a huge breach in security, which is really scary. The hurdles that you had to jump through to get into that room with several badges, plus special COVID tests that had to be taken days in advance, which gave you wristbands that were necessary to gain access to the event. That was something that required forethought. And to try to sabotage that was really vicious. But I had to do a job. I'm not easily distracted, but sadly, it was not something that was entirely surprising to me.
Yeah.
So I think that part was like, oof, all the forethought into that made me wonder, did he know? And also like the security breach part, I think is extremely problematic for anybody. But the way she speaks when she's saying any other workplace, this would be considered an attack. No.
Yeah, that's where these get served, is workplaces, I think, for the most part.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure. I would feel more attacked
at
in
home.
My home.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird because she's using the term workplace, and obviously I think it's it's an event. That's what makes it more, like you just said, all the badges and stuff. But if she was just on set doing her job and she got served, that's normal. I mean, you just don't work in an office. Sorry that it wasn't an office.
Right. I think on stage was like a big show and wildly unnecessary, but rumor has it she was also dodging the paperwork.
Yeah.
Which we don't know. I don't know if that's true or false.
Yeah.
Rumor has it for a month they were trying to access her. She was in different countries. She was not trying to get this paper, something about finances, whatever. So we don't know the situation revolving that. Any kind of security breach is like red flags in my head going, because we don't want people to be able to be accessed that shouldn't be able to be accessed in certain scenarios, but I wouldn't call it an attack. And then the other thing that she talked about that I thought was wildly interesting and agree with is she said she thinks it's really unfair how people celebrate a man as a fucking hero for being a parent and they're calling her an absentee mother. She said, when people see me not with my kids, it's always, how dare she? She said, I've never seen anyone say that about a guy, reflecting how privacy has been violated amid her personal life being out there in the public. She said that Wilde asserted that our culture at large consistently chooses to assume the worst from women. The last 2 years, my family has gone through this kind of restructuring and a revolution that should be a total personal experience, and it's not. The most painful element has been women shaming me for making a decision that was for my own health and happiness. Yeah. And we don't know why she left him.
Yeah.
clearly I don't even know that she left him. She is stating that she left him.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how the breakup happened, but I do think that we do speak about divorce very strangely in this country, especially when a woman decides to leave a man when kids involved. And we don't speak that way about it when a man leaves a woman. So the celebrity aspect aside, I do feel bad. I see what she's talking about on the internet. People are like slamming her for leaving her husband and kids when that's not, in fact, what she's doing. She is leaving her ex-husband.
Yeah.
And maybe that is the best decision for her and her family. So, yeah, I think that there's a lot around this. I bet that Jason Sudeikis has quite the story to tell as well.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. I think that's the interesting thing to me is I do think and I shouldn't say this, but if I were her publicist, because I'm sure she talks to her publicist, it's like, I don't know, because we all know that Jason Sudeikis is not Ted Lasso. We understand that. But he is a very beloved figure. So it's like, yeah, maybe don't like low key. If there's not charges or something, maybe don't slam a guy that's like beloved by the nation right now. And especially if you're viewed as the one leaving, because I think that's the thing that struck me out is like Olivia Wilde's giving very much like dude energy, like leaving the spouse for a younger, more attractive person publicly, like, you know what I mean, in a situation where it reminds me of the John Mulaney, Olivia Munn situation, except that like Olivia Wilde is the John Mulaney in this situation. And so, and I don't know. That's interesting to me. That kind of like, well, actually he sucked. It's like, I don't know, man. Maybe don't. Everybody's on the Jason Sudeikis train right now. You might be right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying maybe don't pick at that particular wound. I don't know, unless you've got like something concrete, like, hey, like even Angelina Jolie, like from what I understand, not that I'm keeping it up, but like the whole Brad Pitt thing, like that was a leak. Of course, that she might have leaked it, but it's like she's not like going after Brad Pitt publicly because it's like, that's not going to go great.
That was one of the really weird parts about this too, is that the way that this conversation started was she was asked about Harry Styles, and she said that she didn't want to talk about it because she's here to protect their love, and she didn't want to ruin that love by talking about it publicly or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's extremely easy to speak positively about somebody that you are currently in love with.
Yeah.
As I know very well, it is wildly difficult to speak positively about somebody that you feel incredibly burned by.
Yeah.
But she did. So she won't speak positively about her love, but will speak negatively about her ex.
Yeah.
And I think that you kind of need, if you're somebody who's public about your relationships, I think better to be open about the Harry relationship and the Jason Sudeikis relationship, or closed about both of them. But or willing to share.
Finish your thought. Sorry.
Just being willing to share the negatives, but not the positives. I'm like, what is that?
I think that's a really good point too. And this is semantics. It doesn't matter. I don't think either of us are coming down on a side or anything like that. It's just more of the optics of it. I think also to your point, or to spin the positive. These are all the great things about me and Harry. Jason and I, we separated. We're figuring that out. It hasn't been going great, but we're figuring that out. Here's all the positive things about it. So now where everything's in a positive light, where it's like, as opposed to like, and again, we're getting the bits and pieces about Jason Sudeikis, and we, again, don't know the guy. I just know public perception is as positive about Jason Sudeikis as it probably ever has been. And it just might, just maybe like let that be. But also, as far as I understand, thankfully I've never been divorced, but that system is built almost to make you antagonistic towards each other. Like it's just designed, like you're just, even if you end on, that's the whole point of that Adam Driver, Scarlett Johansson movie, is they're ending pretty amicably, but then just the process of getting divorced makes them antagonistic towards each other, even though that's not the initial goal. It's messy.
Yeah, totally. And I do think that like it's been very public. So it's not like she made this public and it wasn't public previously. She was served on stage.
Yeah.
So, I'm not blaming her for any of that. I just think, like you said, it would have been nice to hear her go down a rabbit hole about the positives in her life as opposed to the rabbit hole about the negatives and saying, I don't want to speak about the positives.
Yeah. And also, like she points out, I willingly walked in the spot. She's like, I chose to become an actress. I willingly walked in the spotlight. So I find it slightly, I think it's I would say the same thing. Like I knew what I was doing, but also it's unfair. But from the outside, it's like, well, that's a little you're acknowledging your celebrity. So to be like, I can't believe everybody cares about me and Harry Styles. Like, well, I don't disagree, but like, you know the game. Like, you know what you're doing. I mean, come on.
I think it wouldn't be far-fetched to say that Harry Styles is a top 5 celebrity in at least this country now. Like, he is so massive. And I don't think that's the kind of attention she probably got with Jason Sudeikis, who is super loved, but is not like teenage heartthrob. I mean, Harry Styles is like the Justin Bieber of this time right now.
Yeah.
He's the it boy.
Man, so, I would trade. I don't even listen to Harry Styles. I don't know if I could even recite a line from his song. But if you were like, would you rather?
You're so golden.
Nope, nothing. I think that Watermelon Sugar, just that hook is in there. But like,
listen, Stevie Nicks called that his rumors.
Okay, cool. Point being, I'd much rather live in a world where Harry Styles is the it guy than Justin Bieber. Just throwing that out there.
I would 100% agree. The only reason I said that is because I feel as if Jason Sudeikis gets asked as many questions about Olivia Wilde as Olivia Wilde does about Jason Sudeikis.
Yeah.
And with the Harry Styles situation, it probably feels very strange that in almost no interviews that I'm hearing with Harry is he asked about Olivia Wilde. He is.
He's in the stratosphere above both of them. Right. And there's also those, and I don't know what to make, there's also those rumors that Florence Pugh isn't too happy with Olivia Wilde, which I will say I have been around where like I knew the husband and I knew the wife and I was around when one of them was like stepping out, and it is incredibly uncomfortable. It is like, what? Don't do this around me. I don't want to participate in. I don't want to be around this. I'm not involved in this. Don't include me in this.
Yeah, I mean, it seems timeline wise like it was possible that it was not overlapping.
Yeah,
that it was possible that it was months later. But then at the same time, I think everybody's got their issues with their love life. We know Florence Pugh and Zach Braff broke up, and from what we've heard in Hollywood, Zach Braff seems to be not the nicest dude. So who knows if people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, or whether there's validity to certain things. At the end of the day, it's just celebrity culture. We don't know that much about it, but we also know way more than I can't even believe that we know about it.
And I will say, final note, all of these people are celebrities. So to some degree, they probably all suck a little bit, at least a little bit. Just throwing that out there. Now,
I don't want to believe that's true. I can't believe that's true, especially about some of these people.
I just don't want to be hurt.
Queen,
I just don't
want Styles king.
Yeah, I don't want to be hurt. You think they're good, and then you find out these stories, you're like, well, I just got to tell myself they all probably suck a little bit. To get where they're at, they probably all have to suck at least just a little bit. Just a little bit.
No.
No. I do know. I just looked up this is going to seem random, but I just looked up Jackie Chan, and I think he's been married to the same woman for like 50 years. I was like, okay, that guy probably is a champ. That guy is probably, if you can keep a relationship in Hollywood, you were one of the biggest celebrities in the world for decades, and you were able to keep your marriage going. You're doing something right. You're doing something right.
I think it is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
It's extremely difficult. Even all the travel, the wear and tear. Yeah. It is sad. It's a divorce. But I disagree with you when you said that there's no suffering. I mean, I think that suffering, of course, is relative. There's not suffering compared to.
The implication of what she's saying is that her kids suffered because she got served the court document publicly. And it's like, no.
I think she was saying her kids are suffering knowing that, seeing so publicly that her parents are not getting along.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I'm sure that does suck for them. I don't know that this article helped that. I don't think this fixed that problem. I think it probably added to that problem. But it is, they were married for a decade. It's a long time.
Olivia Wilde and Jason Sudeikis?
Yeah, they were together. They had 2 kids. They were married for, I think, a decade. Or together for a decade.
Hold on.
It's just a long time to be with somebody that
you're right. 2011 to 2020.
seemingly disdain for.
I don't think they ever got. It does not look that they got married. I think they
Oh,
were
sorry,
engaged.
together for a decade.
No, I was the same way. Yeah, but together. You're right. Together from 2011 to 2020. That's a long time.
With 2 kids and 10 years under your belt, that's not like a little fling where you're pissed. That's like something, to me, that's like some things were happening.
All right.
She
all right.
also was a much bigger star at the end of their relationship than the beginning. So, and so was he.
Yeah.
So who knows what that looked like.
Who knows? Going on to other news, we got, according to the Hollywood Reporter, DC has found their Kevin Feige. Oh my God, such a weird way to phrase that. The headline is DC's Kevin Feige found. Producer Dan Lin in talks to take control of film, TV for a superhero arm. So this dude named Dan Lin, excuse me, this dude named Dan Lin is, I guess, in talks to be the head of Warner Brothers DC department. It says in the article, Lin is a respected producer known for his smarts, and in a town full of hype and egos, his willingness to find experts on the fields that are not his forte. He has worked on Sherlock Holmes. He's worked on the Sherlock Holmes features, the Robert Downey Jr. ones, the 4 Lego movies, Stephen King's It, Aladdin. He's done more indie stuff like The Two Popes. He's worked on TV like the Lethal Weapon show and Walker, and I guess he's going to be producer on the Avatar: The Last Airbender show on Netflix, which is bound to be disappointing, in my opinion. Roxy, did you hear about this?
Yeah. I mean, I'm taking this super duper with a grain of salt. DC seems to change their mind constantly. Zaslav seems to have very bizarro plans that include bottom line and bottom line only.
Yes.
And you can't just be somebody else. So like Dan Lin very well might be stepping into Walter Hamada's position, but how are we going to say that? Was Walter Hamada ever the DC's Feige?
Yeah, because they're talking about it. They're talking about it as in running the superhero arm of this, but it's also like he's supposed to compete with one of the greatest producers of his generation. It's like Warner Brothers found their Steven Spielberg. It's like, whoa, time out.
Yeah, just totally exactly like that. Like if you it's just not how you would phrase things. Like you would say, if that was the situation, Warner Brothers found their next big director.
Yeah,
but why are we comparing him other than Feige headed the superhero division for Marvel? Why are we how is he the Feige? Do they, if it was like they had the same jobs but they haven't. So it's just like, what is this comparison about?
Yeah.
And I think that part of it honestly is about the fact that it's the easiest way to compare what the job is. Because a lot of the public doesn't really understand what, like if you said to somebody Kevin Feige, they'd probably know who that was.
Yeah.
And not everybody, but a lot of people.
So especially the people on a space, even the more casual people going to Comic-Con, but obviously not everybody.
Yeah. But if you said, what does Kevin Feige do?
Yeah.
I think like, what's his job title? Mm-hmm. I think people would have a hard time pulling what he does exactly. Like, producer, but
he's the guy that brings Mahershala Ali on stage and tells us Blade is happening. Right.
Like he's behind all Marvel. He made all Marvel happen. Like the people would say weird comments like that.
Yeah.
So I do think that the reason that they're phrasing it like this is because they're trying to make people feel confident in the fact that this is now a cohesive vision with one person in charge.
Yeah.
And that job position, that title does not resonate the same way as calling it all DC. I say our because I did DC. I feel like I'm part of DC.
Yeah.
Our or Kevin Feige, which is like, it's not what it is, but I get why they do that. It's buzzworthy and it helps people understand what position's being filled. But inevitably, it's setting this man up for a huge failure because what? Have you guys not learned at all? And that would make me think also that means they've made some clear decisions moving forward, that this is going to be a collective universe. We're going to do maybe less of these one-offs. They are trying to copy Marvel.
Yeah.
And we've always known that that's not the move for DC.
Yeah.
So that makes me a little nervous too. What doesn't make me nervous is this human being, because frankly, I have no pros or cons against him.
Yes.
maybe he's dope, maybe he's not. The things that you read that are in his resume.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure. None of
But
that.
the same thing with Feige. Before Feige did what he did, I would have been like, I don't know. He could be good. Who knows?
Exactly. Like nobody even the Star Wars is under the banner of Disney, and they have not been able to accomplish. Disney's not even able to replicate the accomplishments of part of their own studio. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just one of those. And I love when Zaslav was on that phone call, and he was like, "Don't worry, guys, we've got a 10-year plan." As if they'd never attempted that before. As if they're not on the third version of their 10-year plan or whatever. It's like, yeah, this stuff's hard. Like it's clearly, it seems like it should be easy. The material is there. I also get the impression, I don't know this is the case, Roxy, but this is the impression I get. I get the impression that the higher ups at Warner Brothers, whether it was AT&T Warner Brothers or Discovery Warner Brothers now, that they just wish, like they don't understand what they have. Like they wish, they're like, man, I wish we had what Marvel has, as in I wish we had Iron Man and Hulk and the Avengers.
Right.
And it's like,
well, you have Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. What are you talking about?
Marvel doesn't even actually own the studio rights to their most popular. They don't have Spider-Man, and they haven't released one Wolverine movie. You have everything.
I would say 15 years ago, 12 years ago, there were probably 5, maybe 6 DC characters that were every household name.
Yeah.
And there was one Marvel one.
Yeah.
Like, do you guys not understand that even though you've botched this, you still have, whether I want to see it or not, the Joker, Batman, Superman, bro, you have Superman.
Yep.
I mean, like, that you just consistently just decide not to do anything with, which is beyond me. Beyond me. The easiest play of all time. Man of Steel 2. I mean, there's never been an easier play ever.
Yep.
I don't know. Or reboot. Superman. You have Superman.
Yeah.
That's the one you've been doing for decades.
Yeah. He was the first one. 1977? I can't remember when Richard Donner's Superman came out, but like he was the one. He did it.
You know what you don't want to be doing? Banking on the fact that Ezra Miller is going to get help in some form of a rehabilitation center. So you're going to use them as one of your main pillars moving forward. Like, how are we going to just say, they said sorry?
All good now.
Does that work in the court of law? Like what? So we'll see. We'll see what this Dan Lin,
and it's interesting too because there's obviously he's replacing. You just mentioned he's replacing Walter Hamada, who has come under fire for. He wasn't even around when Justice League was being made, but he came under fire from Ray Fisher because Ray Fisher said he was protecting Jeff Johns, but just relaying that information, not landing on either side. But he also was like behind the getting James Gunn to do the Suicide Squad, the Batman, Joker. It's like, so yeah, it was working. Like it wasn't like, I know it's not what Marvel was doing, but like you were making movies that made billions of dollars.
Yeah, totally. I actually am super curious because of course Walter Hamada became way more well known as A over E, became very consistent on Ray Fisher's Twitter. Has Ray said anything about this?
Not that I am aware of.
All right, I'm checking it out.
Let's follow up. But you're right.
Now, his most recent tweet was 5 days ago. Wow, I would have expected. Well, but okay. Earlier this month, prior to this coming out, the Hollywood Reporter article, DC Films, Walter Hamada was on the brink of exit after Batgirl cancellation, and Ray Fisher quote tweeted and said, "Walter Hamada feigning, Feigning,
Yeah.
Thank you. Feigning outrage and pretending to quit a job he knows he's being replaced at is quite a vibe." So,
I mean, he was regardless of his opinions, it's true. I mean, like I don't know whether he's I can't say whether he's feigning outrage, but he had to have known he's being replaced. Like this is what was going to happen.
And clearly Ray knew too, and then of course A over E.
What is the A over E?
Accountability over everything. I think.
Okay.
That's how have you not seen that? That's what he
I
A
vaguely
greater than
remember that.
E.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that. Yeah, but it's also like
It's every tweet is how he ends every tweet regarding DC.
as you pointed out, like you had a Batgirl film. You had one of the Bat family, the DC books. One, there's always the consistent rumors that they're going to try and like farm out DC Comics because it never makes money. It's like, yeah, I understand that the comics maybe don't make money, but they make your movies that make you money. You know what I mean? It's not nothing. You stupid people. Like, come on. It's like you had a Batgirl movie. You had with Batman in it. It wasn't even like Supergirl, the first season of Supergirl, where you had to like Superman's around somewhere. A Batman, not only a Batman, probably the most. He's not necessarily. I love Michael Keaton. He's not necessarily my favorite Batman, but I think we can all agree he's probably the most iconic Batman.
Yeah.
He was in your movie. He was in your Batgirl movie. You had a Batgirl movie.
You know what I would have loved to hear? I would have loved, and I don't even know who he would have pitched this to, but I would have loved this article to be like, this is what happened. Daniel Lynn had been working at Warner Brothers for X amount of years, and he came into the office of whoever made the board and said, here is my
vision
plan. Here's my vision. And it blew everybody away to the extent that we were like, you need to be in charge.
Yeah. You're thinking of this like a fan.
Actually been.
You're thinking of this like a fan.
I am.
Yeah. You're thinking of this like as a fan. Like the way you described that, that's super exciting. But it was like, here's how we're going to save money. Here's our cost projections.
Right. So what I'm actually thinking happened was they looked around and said, who are our options?
Yeah.
All right. So we've got like these 5-10 people. Let's vet them all. Maybe see like which one of them didn't used to tweet about pedophilia or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So that eliminates half. Now we've got 4 to 5. Okay. Let's like maybe interview a couple people that they've worked with, see how abusive they are on set. Okay. So now we've got like 2 left. We're between these 2 people. Okay, how much money are you willing to take? And what is your plan to save us money? Okay, you're Kevin Feige.
Yeah, done. Mission accomplished.
But what are your intentions?
Because I think that's the thing. Like, especially at this point in the game, I feel like it's safe to say that the as far as a fan, there are decisions I would disagree with Feige making. Like, especially like some of the later movies, we'll throw away like big plot beats for like a half-hearted joke. But no matter what you will say about, some of the output, I feel like it is safe to say Kevin Feige is a fan. Like, he gives a shit about this stuff. Arguably, I was talking to a friend of the show, Jason Inman, about it. He was like, maybe he cares. He might even care too much, but the point is he cares. Like, he cares about this material. He has a vision for it, and I think that's what's made it work. And in fact, I would argue that might be what's kind of making other things struggle, like Star Wars. Like they're viewing as like producers, where once you get like and I've had my issues with some of for me, the Mandalorian, stuff like that, but like, I think from an objective perspective, you get somebody like Dave Filoni, who was shepherding Clone Wars and Rebels. You get him in on The Mandalorian. You get him in on all that stuff. Suddenly, people respond to it more because he's a fan. He gets it. He knows what they want to see.
Same thing with Favreau, but they don't respond to Kathleen Kennedy stuff. Like it's just, and that, I don't even want to get into the Kathleen Kennedy.
Which is not to say, obviously, that J.J. Abrams or anybody else, or Ryan, none of those people are, obviously they're fans, but like there's obviously decision making above them that is. So
what do you think are the chances that Dan Lin is a fan?
I think it is more likely the scenario you presented of they whittled it down to this person and they will save them money. I would like to think, because I think you need to understand, if you want a Kevin Feige, you need somebody that understands the material. Like, I guess one of the names that was batted around, whether this was accurate or not, was Greg Berlanti. And it's like, I don't know how he would do on the jump from TV to movies, but he clearly gets the material. Like, he's a fan, he gets it. Like, so it's like that I would be interested. I don't know if he's the right guy because Jeff Johns also got the material, and that became a whole thing. You know what I mean? That obviously might not have been the best choice. So it's not as easy as that. But is he?
Right,
I
but you
hope
think
so.
those would be the people they were looking at, right?
Yeah.
Like, if the goal was, I really think probably Zaslav came in and said these exact words: "We need to find our Feige."
Yeah.
I think that's something he probably verbalized out loud.
Yes.
So if that's the goal, you've got to look at Berlanti, right?
Yeah.
You would have to look at the Jeff Johnses of the world.
Yeah.
You know, I would imagine he even looked at Snyder. Like, I would imagine that he probably looked at several people, Patty Jenkins,
Yeah.
like probably did some looking at some of their creators.
Yeah.
And then he went with this guy who did Godzilla or some. What did he do?
Sherlock Holmes. He did the Sherlock Holmes movies.
Holmes.
Yeah. And the Lego movies, which are fun. They're good movies.
Yeah, the Lego movies.
They said
so there's got to be a
Lego
reason
movies.
he went with him.
Yeah.
I'm curious what that reason is. I would like to know more.
Yeah. I agree. I am hopeful. I mean, let's hope. Good. Very concerned because the impression I feel like Zaslav is getting all of us is, he was working on Discovery, so he's making like reality TV and shit. So it's like, what's the most amount of content we can make for the least amount of money? And that's not how like he probably looked at like the fact that House of the Dragon is the biggest premiere in HBO history, but then look how much it cost to make the show, and he's probably like, we'll see. Like in his mind, that show's probably on the bubble.
Yeah, totally. I mean, but like shows like, for example, The Rehearsal, we just found out is getting picked up for a second season.
Yeah, but I think that's coming at HBO because and this gets into a point you've made before. The distinction. What is the distinction between HBO and HBO Max? That's HBO, and so like I feel like he hasn't gotten his little fingies in there yet. If you're an HBO Max show, you're probably done for. If you're an HBO show, you might get a season 2.
Like you cannot Google the difference between what shows are produced by what companies?
Or
what platforms?
Only assume that if I get the little staticky, HBO. If I get the purple Max.
Right, but DJ, if you were right now to try to Google what are HBO shows versus HBO Max shows, you could not do that.
Cool.
It's like, so that's the only way I know is what you just said.
Yeah. All I know is I know HBO Max just did a big thing. We're getting a season 2 of Our Flag Means Death. We're getting another season of all the stuff that they already started filming. We're getting other seasons. I mean, I think for all I know, by the end of this episode, Our Flag Means Death will be in the canceled. And then Doom Patrol season 4 might be in the can. They'll be like, never mind, we're not going to air it.
Well, yeah, right. Because you would have guessed that we were getting Batgirl.
Yeah, because it's already in the can. How would we not? How would we not? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Totally.
I think Zaslav's brain is. I would imagine if we asked him like, "Wow, did this backlash surprise you?" He's like, "Yeah, I cancel show. We cancel pilots. We cancel shows all the time that nobody ever sees. Why do they care?" It's like, well, because we all knew. For one, this isn't one of your shitty TLC shows, and two, we all knew it was coming. Like we'd seen pictures of Leslie Grace in costume. What are you talking about? Anyway, this is a good segue, I think, to what we are talking about. House of the Dragon, episode 1. This is going to be a spoiler discussion because as of this discussion, episode 1's been out a week. Episode 1 is Heirs of the Dragon, directed by Miguel Sapochnik and written by Ryan J. Condal. Viserys hosts a tournament to celebrate the birth of his second child. Rhaenyra welcomes her uncle Daemon back to the Red Keep. And if you're like, wow, some of those names sound familiar, don't worry, the names will be super fucking confusing because not only are characters from Game of Thrones named after these people, but there's a few people in the episode that have strikingly similar names.
Yeah, and we're going to get old versions of them and current,
Did we know that? Because I didn't know that till I looked at the IMDb and I saw that there were, okay.
I didn't know either.
I was like, so much of the marketing is around this young actress, and how many episodes is she going to be in? I don't even know. Spoilers. They're going to age them up.
Yeah.
Everybody get excited.
Totally.
So general thoughts, Roxy. I know you were talking about earlier that you got some. Let's be generous and say you got some negative feedback on your thoughts.
Crazy. Like I wanted to start screenshotting some of the things that I got, but like it's people who clearly don't know me or follow me because they're like, why don't you just go watch She-Hulk if all you care about is fluff television?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm getting that comment a lot, and I'm like, I literally watch more television than anybody I know.
Yeah.
I'm not like not well versed in TV and just saying this show is too violent for me. I watch a lot of violent TV, and this show is not too violent for me.
Yeah.
I've also been called snowflake like 5,000 times this week. Cool. And it's not Wokeros, it's Westeros, Roxy.
What a weird. No, you know what? I call bullshit on that. I don't think those people actually watch Game of Thrones, because like if you're throwing around shit like that, Game of Thrones would be too woke for you for all its flaws. Game of Thrones, I feel like pretty distinctly came down on we shouldn't treat women shitty. I think that was for the bulk of the show.
Right.
Yeah.
And then like continue to be tweeted at saying that I didn't watch the episode and I clearly only watched one scene, which I literally did a live watch along of the episode. Yeah. So like, don't know what to tell you guys. I really watched it, watched the whole thing. I actually don't dislike the show. I like the show. So that's the craziest part about all of this.
Yeah.
The controversy for me about me came from the fact that I don't think that they made some choices that I liked. Mm-hmm. So this is what the entirety of my point is. And then like the internet just fucking has lost their mind over it, which is fine.
Yeah.
I like my fantasy, the things that I like to watch in fantasy, to be things that you fantasize about.
Yeah.
So dragons work for me in fantasy in a dope way.
Yeah.
I love things like that. That's why I was really stoked for House of the Dragon. Mm-hmm. And when we first see the dragon coming in, I was like, whoa, you know, I really like dragons. I love politics in my fantasy, to see like how they're navigating and who's going to be queen, king, next heir, that kind of stuff. Those are the kind of things that I think about. And I'm like, ooh, I like that. Or any kind of creatures or anything like that. In the fantasy that I like, love, romance, like that's the kind of fantasy that not saying that that's the kind of fantasy that should be made.
Yeah.
It's the kind of fantasy that
you
I
respond
prefer,
to.
that I respond to.
I don't think this show is going to give you all the romantic stuff I got in this episode is all icky bad. Icky bad.
So I responded really well to Game of Thrones.
Yes.
I didn't love the finale, but I actually did like the final season.
Yeah.
Anything with like rings of power and White Walker, like creatures and animals and war tactics and things like that. I'm interested in.
Yeah.
There's two specific things I did not like about House of the Dragon.
Yes.
There were two specific scenes that I did not like that could have both been easily tweaked, I think. Yeah. The first one being the one that, of course, is all over the internet, of the woman having the baby and then her getting killed to save the baby.
Yeah.
I feel like it would have been super easy to ask her what she wanted to do with her body. Mm-hmm. And very likely, we had already set up a scenario in which she had said, the birthing place is our battlefield. So I think very likely she would have said, cut this baby out of me, save the baby.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that far-fetched that we couldn't have asked her what she wanted to do with her body and the body growing inside her body.
Yeah.
I don't think that would have been...
Yeah, I do think that goes against what the show is trying to say, but I understand your point.
I don't think it would go against what the show is trying to say, because this show is painting... The internet has deemed this king to be a really good king.
That was not the impression I got from the episode.
Right.
not only the impression I got is this guy's a fucking. I think what the show is trying to communicate to me in this is this guy's willing to murder his fucking wife for an heir, and he's going to cry about it later. But like he's an asshole. Also, I got the impression that he's also bad at his job, which is a constant theme in Game of Thrones. Kings are always bad at this. There's no such thing as a good king.
So you have critical thinking skills, DJ, which some people lack.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of people on the internet are saying that he did not murder his wife.
No, he did.
That he is a great king. And that he did what had to be done to save a baby. And if he didn't do that, he would be a baby murderer. That's the discourse on the internet.
Oh, listen, true.
So,
I mean, I'm sure that from the information we're given, because I'm not going to pretend like I understand medieval midwifery. The impression I'm giving is that options were both die, maybe baby lives, because we don't have like antibiotics and shit. But if he cared about that, he would have asked his wife.
Right.
What he cared about was an heir.
So that's my point, is that if we are trying to paint a picture of a man who cared about his wife, which I don't think they were not trying to do.
Okay.
I think that they're trying to show him as kind of a Ned Stark type.
Yeah, that's not the vibe I got, but I get that.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. It's not the vibe I have now because of what they did.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would be not off base in any way for him to take 2 seconds to say, we have no way of saving you. This is how we save the baby. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Fine. I didn't have a problem with the amount of blood. Everybody's like, Snowflake, you hate the blood, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I don't care that we saw blood. I liked Game of Thrones. Again, I watch more TV than any of you guys.
Yeah.
I see blood everywhere. I didn't have a problem with the fact that this is a crazy time period in which we don't have medicine to save both people's lives. That happened back. Okay, pausing there. Yeah. There is no back then. We made this time up. There's no back then.
And
we can't.
Yeah, there is a
there are aspects that are borrowing from medieval times. There are aspects that are borrowing from. There's fucking dragons.
And it's also
fucking dragons.
Aspects of what we understand in medieval times. I did read an article, and I am paraphrasing somebody else's work that I read years ago. So forgive me the specifics, but I think the argument they were making is the way Game of Thrones presents women is actually not medieval. Women's role within medieval culture, it's the way Victorians presented that. So it actually wasn't. It wasn't obviously it wasn't great to be a woman, but it was close to being just as bad as being a man in medieval times, just because life was so harrowing in general. But Victorians were the future generations were so stick up with their ass misogynistic that they presented medieval times as also being that way, even though that's not really the case. So it's not even beyond the dragons. It's our understanding of that. And I do think you can. Because I think what they're going for, I think if I were to try and present a case for these people, I think what they're going for is not only commenting on our understanding of those times, but also our own times and how harsh we are towards women. I don't know that I think everybody gets it. I think especially right now, we're all kind of on the same page. I think what would make that go down easier is if you had a clear somebody not going through that. So for Game of Thrones, I think of an Arya who went through a lot, but not a lot of it was specifically like violence against her being a woman, that kind of thing. And also, Brienne? Brienne is another. If you had like a clear-cut Arya or a Brienne, like, hey, we're going to talk about the harshness of women over here. These characters just to get to be fun, cool, empowered girl characters making their way in a world that doesn't like them. You know what I mean? I think that would benefit it because right now, even though Rhaenyra is our main character, I feel like the show, even she's our point of view character, she's put in a position where I can imagine all sorts of horrors happening to her in future episodes. It's like I feel like you need to give us one girl character that like she's not going to be raped or brutalized or any of that shit. It's going to be not smooth sailing, but you know what I mean? Like it doesn't need to be all punishment against women all the time.
Totally. And with a male EP and showrunner,
yes.
And them speaking at the end about the woman involved, that they were like, we needed a woman perspective.
Yeah,
and
I think there's two. I looked up. There's 2 women writers on the show out of like 6 or some writers, and it's like, nah, I would argue not good enough.
That's why, right? I'm not sitting here trying to say that every show needs to have a woman showrunner by any means.
But if one of your main themes is going to be violence against women, then
maybe it's relevant.
Yeah.
But I had an equal issue.
Yeah.
With Rhaenyra's best friend.
Oh my God.
With the dad sending her in to essentially go bone the king.
Oh, I was so glad when the show didn't do that. I was like, I'm not going to be able, if we do this in this episode, I'm not going to be able to fucking take it. Danny brought this up. What do you think about the Hand of the King? I get real bad feelings about the dude. I didn't until that moment. And I was like, oh, this guy sucks.
They were painting him as like a good guy who was like, yes. And so that's part of my issue too, is that like, I don't think the audience understands the intention of part of this show.
Yeah.
And I think that the audience believes the good guys to be the king in the hand of the king. And that's how they learn their treatment of women. I'm not fucking with you, DJ. Like, my biggest problem with this show is that even if they're trying to make a commentary, they're speaking to people that don't understand this commentary.
Yeah.
And is that their obligation? No. But I think the way that I was treated on Twitter is exactly the problem with this show.
Yeah.
It's exactly the problem, is that like people aren't saying that was so fucked up what he did to his wife. That's so fucked up what he did to his daughter.
Yeah.
People are saying, I think it makes sense that he sent his daughter in there. You've got to do what you got to do to get ahead. I think it makes sense that he killed his wife, or they won't even phrase it that way, but that he took the baby out of his wife. What are you going to do? Murder a baby? That's the discourse.
Mm-hmm.
And so clearly it's not landing the way that maybe they intended it to.
Yeah.
And so while I enjoyed the rest of the episode, a lot of people online are like, why don't you have a problem with the dismemberment of men? Because I don't see anybody online saying, I think that that's legit that they chop off their penises.
Yeah.
But also, those people are rapists.
We're told. I do have questions about
Damon. Then they're not.
How did Damon verify that information? I'm curious about.
Right. If they're not, then they're not. But I'm just saying that there's a clear-cut difference for the people on the internet who are like, why don't you have a blah, blah, blah? Why isn't this a problem for you?
Yeah.
Number one, because the discourse on the internet is not, this is how we should treat men. We should chop off their penises.
Yeah.
And number two, because at least there was a reason, or we're told.
Yeah, we're given a reason.
As opposed to, what is the reason you did not take 2 seconds to say to your wife, this is what's happening? She's screaming.
Yeah. And I think that what you could have and maybe in a future episode they will, although I don't know that they will. The daughter will present that, and maybe that's another thing that the show would benefit from on a variety of levels. I think it's interesting that like you look at the scope of Game of Thrones and House of the Dragons very immediately like just the one house, and I was like, do I care enough about that? You know what I mean? Like, do I? But to your point,
that I think I do.
Well, and I also think it might help them budgetary wise that it's like, but just the one thing this time, but it might benefit them if we did. And we do see Starks at the end of the episode, but there's no hint given that they matter to the show. And I'm not saying we need, I'm not saying we need the Starks, but it might benefit to have, no, these are our good guys so that they can comment. Like, so you can have a Ned being like, fuck no, I'd never murder my wife and take the baby out. Are you fucking crazy? Why would I do that?
Why would I do that?
Yeah, just that voice of, because that was
so that we can be speaking to the people who are saying these are the good guys, the king and the right hand.
So even when you get to like the end of Game of Thrones, where you've got some fans that are like, incest is wincest, it's okay. You have the Starks there going, no, this isn't all right.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. So those are my issues.
Yeah.
What I really like is the scenario we're creating in which who needs to be the heir. Like we're kind of scaling down.
Yeah.
And I understand that instead of who's going to sit on the Iron Throne and there being 8,000 options right now, who's going to be the heir? This is my brother. This is my daughter. I'm clearly not having a son, at least right now, unless I get somebody else pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
That's a scenario that I'm like, ooh, what's going to happen here?
Yeah.
Now that she's in this position too, what does that mean? Was this brother lying to us? Was this not all about rape? Like what happened? All of that stuff, the political angle of it, I'm interested in. Also, I feel like I was getting some really great queer vibes from the girl sitting on the throne now, Rhaenyra, and her whatever that was, and I was like,
Alicent.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What does that look like during this time? Am I reading too much into what's up there? Like, Loved the way the dragon looked. Super wanted to see more dragon stuff in House of the Dragon. How do the dragons play into this? Who can talk to the dragon? Who can direct the dragon? You know,
I also thought it
all
was
of
really
that.
smart to be like, yeah, there's dragons around, but there's like 5. It's not like there's thousands. There's 5. We're not going crazy.
Yep, totally, totally. Because of all of that, I'm like, I'm definitely watching the show. I
Yeah.
really loved Game of Thrones. I'm really intrigued by a lot of this show. I think they could have taken 2 seconds to make this show a little more helpful
Yeah.
and a little more fantasy.
Yeah.
Because we're in Westeros, not the United States,
No.
and we're with dragons, not in an actual time period of our past.
Yeah.
One of the number one comments I keep getting, DJ, from people is, so do you have an issue when they show slavery? You have an issue when they show slavery in movies? And I'm like, I don't understand your comparison. Frankly, I might have an issue with a movie that decided to have dragons and historically accurate slavery. Like,
No.
that would be fucking weird. That would be fucking weird.
Yeah.
But also, I just am talking about my preference, not what they should have done, what I wish I saw.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I do hope, because it makes me, when you talk about that, it makes me think about all the people at the end of Breaking Bad's around like, no, Walt was the good guy. It's like, I'm sorry, what? What show are you watching? Because I feel like the show kind of went out of its way to let us know Walt's not good. Walt is a bad person. It's called Breaking Bad. It's not, Walt's all right, actually.
Totally.
But yeah, so
Totally.
it'll be interesting to see how they, if they, and how they
Pivot.
resolve those each issues. I do hope, I really think I see an argument for saying we're going to use our fantasy show, because Game of Thrones was, there is an element of escapism, but it's not as much about escapism as something like Lord of the Rings or something like that. But if one of your things you're going to talk about, you're going to really hit on, is how shitty most of Western culture has been to women always. Get more women, like you said, like have this episode directed by a woman. I don't, you know what I mean? Like have that voice be clearer. And I do hope, I hope, I'm not necessarily against the ickiness. 'Cause now I'm thinking about the Hand's daughter.
Yeah.
Because I do think, especially now that I know that they age up, it's like, yeah, she's probably going to end up with a king, and I'm not going to be cool with that. And it's okay that the show does things I'm not cool with, as long I just not only handle it well, but also like have aspects of the show that aren't like, again, the Aryas and the Briennes, like stuff that's more empowering.
So that you have a perspective.
Yeah.
Like, so you're showing the juxtaposition of two things. Like, if you're going to make this girl, if you're going to groom this girl into being this guy, the king's person, I want to know very clearly as an audience member what the show's perspective on that is.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and again, I hope it keeps hitting on what I think they've hinted at, is that this guy's bad at being king, because I think that's something they did with the first Baratheon, the first king. It's like,
Robert.
Ned likes him. They're friends. He's a bad king. Like, he's bad at this. Like, he's not, like, you can like a dude and he's still like not a good dude. Like, that's.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily what they're trying to show, but I don't know. And definitely the internet doesn't seem to think that's what they're trying to show. So, but I on my must-watch list for this week, this is on it.
Yeah.
You got, like, I'm not watch. No part of me was like, I'm done. I'm not watching this show. I hated this show. I didn't like 2 scenes because that's not what I like in my fantasy.
Yeah.
Why are people so mad at that?
Because they just they want to fight on the internet. They just want to be mad
I
about
also
shit.
I also really, really like that other people did like it.
Yeah.
Not sitting here trying to convince DJ or anybody else you should like this less.
Yeah.
People ask my opinion. What's your opinion on it?
I liked it fine, by the way. Just general thought. I liked it fine. I don't know. I'm interested in knowing more. I don't know that, like, I remember watching the first episode of Game of Thrones. I was like, sold, into it, on it. And this one, I was like, we'll see. You know what I mean? We'll see. I have my concerns. But
I didn't love the pilot of Game of Thrones, by the way, DJ.
Yeah, for some reason, I know a lot of people said that. For me, like immediately, I was like into this. The fact that it opened with the White Walker, so it's like, yes, there are mystical things. That's not what the show's about. We get into political intrigue. I was from the jump. I was sold on that show. Yeah, we'll see. There's elements I like. All of the actors, like we've got Patty Considine, we got Matt Smith, and that Matt Smith is
so good.
Yeah, he's so good because that's the one I would think more people would be confused about because he is such a fucking asshole, but Matt Smith is so charismatic that you're almost like, wait, am I supposed to like this guy? Even though clearly he is trash. he is a trash person. But Matt Smith, I kind of like him. You know what I mean?
He's so good. Olivia Cook's in this show.
Yeah, dude,
I really like.
She's playing. They did such good young casting because she's playing the older Allison, and I had to stop. Like, wait, is that Olivia Cook? And then it's like, oh, she's in the show, but not yet. I was like, oh God, you did really good young casting because I thought it was her. I thought it was somehow
They
she
did an excellent job. Yeah, I love her. I loved her in Sound of Metal.
Yeah.
And a bajillion other things. And for years, I've just been thinking this girl's gonna blow up.
Also, credit where it's due, Reese Ifans, who is so good and stuff that
So good.
I don't find out till later. Like, oh wait, he was the hand. It was the same thing when I saw the most recent Kingsman. I was like, wait, that was Reese Ifans? Like, he just vanishes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, he was excellent. There's a lot of great performers on the show. Graham McTavish, who we know from all over the place, but I loved him in Preacher. I thought he was like one of the best parts of that show too.
Who was he in Preacher?
What?
I didn't watch. I only watched the first few episodes of Preacher.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
He's the saint of all killers.
Oh shit! I bet he was good at that. I bet that was good. That's good casting.
He was so good, DJ. But I really feel like you did watch Preacher. We didn't talk about that all the time.
I read the comic, and so the show kind of bummed me out.
Okay.
Similar Sandman situation, actually. That does not surprise me. That does not surprise me.
You could picture. Does not seem like exactly what. Yeah.
100%. When you said that, I'm like, god damn it. Maybe I should watch Preacher. Cool. Well, that is us. That is it for this week. I hope we answered your questions. Roxy, what should the kids be looking out for from you?
Find me everywhere at Roxy Stryer. A lot going on with the World Girls and our podcast, Bitch Out of Water, which has been great. We've been really upping our social media game. We're doing this new thing, as much as I hate trivia, where we ask each other questions, fun facts. And I feel like I'm learning a lot of random things about geography and animals and music and stuff. So that's been really fun on our socials. Check it out.
You just made me think of that first episode of The Rehearsal where Nathan is trying to let the guy know the trivia questions without him realizing it.
Unbelievable. And like the bike would go by. That's a crazy recumbent
bike. The one that got me the most was when there's like a police line and the cop's like, yeah, guy murdered his wife and then himself. Almost makes me hate the Chinese for inventing gunpowder. It's like, god damn it.
That was so good.
Wild show. Watch that show. HBO is still putting out, for the time being, knock on wood, HBO is still putting out quality shit. Anyway, check that out. You can follow me at DJ Talks Trash. You can follow the show everywhere that matters at Only Stupid Answers, but on Twitter.
You ain't got the vowels from stupid.
Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you all next time.